Remember back in the day when you taught me to live and I taught you to pray. We went in the battle together, no matter the weather, we never delayed. You gave me commands, I always obeyed. I never let you go astray. I never thought I'd see the day that you would come and just betray me. Sick of playing silly games, you never loved me anyway. You should not have let me get away, cause now I'm moving for my prey. I'm bigger, I'm better, my mind is a weapon. I won't ever let up. You try to break me down and I'ma just get up. They ask me how I did it, I'ma just tell them I rose up. Survivor, fight for my life, coming back stronger, I will arise. I'm a survivor, fight for my life, coming back stronger, I will arise. Staring at you from afar, analyzing every scar, asking myself how we got here. Remember, this is who we are. I am not here for revenge. I did not come to make amends. Not here to repent for my sins. I just came here to win. I just came here to end. I just came here to fight. Show you everything you said I couldn't be. I became overnight. This for the blood, this is for the tears. This is for my pain and my plight. Two walked in, but only one of us is walking out of here tonight. I'm a survivor. For my life, coming back stronger, I will arise. I'm a survivor, fight for my life, coming back stronger, I will arise.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to round one of the ANZ ESeries GT3 Championship. Last season, Vermilion Motorsport decided, let's try running a league. And you know what? It was such a success, they thought, why don't we do this 4 times over? We will be bringing you GT3, NASCAR, Formula Ford, and Toyota GR86 Racing each and every fortnight. They'll be on a rotationary basis. So in week 1, we'll be bringing you GT3 on a Wednesday, followed by NASCAR on a Thursday. For week 2, we'll be bringing you Formula Ford on a Wednesday, and then on a Thursday, the Toyota GR86 is one of the most popular cars on the platform. The racing is going to be spectacular. We're going to be here every week bringing you the Wednesday night action, and by we, who do I mean? I am Liam Banks, and alongside me is Mitch, the son of evil. How are you going, Mitch?
I am feeling so good. This has been months in the making, and it's finally here. It's happening. You and me. 20 drivers. Is it 20? That's what we ended up with? No, I'm counting 24. I've got 24 drivers in here right now. I'm so excited for this participation.
Oh, it's awesome. It's a fantastic turnout. It's a new league, as we just stated, of course, coming from the ashes of the very first season which was just the Toyota GR86. So this is a whole new car. We weren't sure what the numbers were going to be going into it. So to get above 20 drivers is absolutely fantastic. And we're going to start them off at a really challenging circuit in Fuji. Fuji is one of those circuits where the undulation plays a huge part in the difficulty. It reminds me a bit of Brazil, a bit of the Interlagos, just with the way that there's so many corners of different radiuses, and the undulation makes every corner absolutely unique, and every corner a real driver's challenge.
You know, every track that I have ever been on or raced on, either in real life or in iRacing, the undulation, in my opinion, is what makes them so fantastic. It's a switch where you get your cambers, like your off camber, your on camber, and that's what presents the corners and makes them so challenging. Because they're all unique, they're all different, and it makes the track so much more technical. And if you ask any driver, they're going to tell you that a technical track is the best track to race at.
100%. It actually astounds me that Silverstone is so good when it doesn't have any undulation, because when I think of all the other classic tracks they have undulation, you think of Suzuka, you think of Spa, you think of the Red Bull Ring, tracks with massive elevation changes. I mean, look at Bathurst as well, that climb up the hill, the descent down the hill. That's what makes them spectacular. So for me, Silverstone is a real outlier in being the most spectacular flat circuit, but every other circuit I think of as being spectacular has lots of undulation.
Well, have a think about what, in your opinion, is the most iconic corner at Silverstone.
At Silverstone, it's got to be the Maggots, Cops.
I was thinking Cops was what came. Maggots and Becks is actually a fantastic second. But Cops, and that's an off-camber corner. That's what makes that corner so challenging. You know, so it might not have like the roller coaster ups and downs, ebbs and flows, but I think it's the camber that makes them challenging and technical.
I'd also add in Luffield, but that's because it comes after that left-hander, so you have the left-hander into the real long right-hander of Luffield, and just having the left-right switchback, but not a chicane, means you get fantastic racing through there. And I'd love to see what that would look like if you had a little bit of on-camber, because I think that would make it even more spectacular, similar to how you've got the second corner at Zandvoort.
Oh, yes. Yes, I know the one you're talking about. I think they regraded that recently too. And we don't have that regrading in iRacing yet, do we?
No, we don't, but it's coming. It's coming sometime in the next season or 2, I believe.
Well, that's exciting, because I think from memory that gave multiple lines through that corner and good overtakes. I remember Fernando Alonso famously taking the high road during that in the, I think it was the 2020 season, and suddenly everyone else was doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, and of course he knew to take the high road because he'd just been doing IndyCar, so he knew how to get around the banked corner quick, and it really helped him get up to speed. Everyone was saying he was the first driver to get up to speed in that corner, and it would have been because of that experience. And I tell you what, we've got a lot of experienced drivers in the field tonight.
Yes, I was looking at the strength of field here before, and I think about 2,400 strength of field, and a few guys up in the 4 and I think 5K.
That's a very high I rating. So for those of you not familiar with what we're talking about, those of you not familiar with I rating is the number that iRacing, which is the platform that we're hosting this race on, uses to basically judge how fast each driver are, and it's similar to the ELO ranking in chess in that every time you win a race or you perform well on the race, you earn points off everybody else in that race, and the worst performers lose points to others in that race, and it's based on your current I rating. So if you are I rating 4,000 and you beat a bunch of people that are I rating 2,000, you're not going to gain much because you're expected to win them. The probability was that you would win them. It doesn't indicate that you've got better. However, switch that the other way around. If you're a 2,000 rating driver and you beat a bunch of 4,000 rating drivers, that probability is so low, it's going to think, oh, this person must have improved, and it's going to allocate you a heap of points to indicate that. So anything above 2,000 is reasonable. Anything around the 3,000, you're getting to really good. Above 4,000, and you're getting to some of the best races in iRacing. You're getting to the top 5%.
So I think, for reference, Max Verstappen sits at about 9,000. The current two-time, looking like he might even be three-time world champion of Formula One, and probably one of the very best drivers in the world, who is part of the iRacing community. If you're lucky enough, good enough, you can luck into a game with him. But he sits at about 9,000 I rating, and I believe the top of the bell curve, which is your average racer, sits at about 1,300 I racing. So when we talk about this race having a strength of field of about 2,400, I think that represents something like the top 30 to 40, anywhere from 40 to 30% of the best iRacers on the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. These are some absolutely class races, and you can just tell by the lap times that some of these are absolutely class. Sarong getting a 1 minute 38.7 in practice, which is why we're not talking about it too much, because it is only practice. He's going to go into qualifying as the favourite, however, and I can tell you from experience that is a very good lap time around Fuji. When you're beating the likes of Fitzroy Beaumont by a second, that's genuine pace.
And Fitzroy is good. I think he's sitting at somewhere around 2,500 I rating at the moment, and he's a second behind Serrano. So that really tells you the caliber of the drivers that we are lucky enough to have in this series.
And of course, Fuji, as we said, it is a really challenging circuit, and it is one of those circuits that does exaggerate gaps because there's so much time to be gained and lost in every corner, and every corner is quite punishing when you get it wrong. So it is one of those tracks that, compared to other circuits, you are going to see bigger gaps here. And what that's going to mean is throughout qualifying and throughout the race, we're going to get a bit more field spread than we normally would. But because it's such a good track, we're going to get fantastic battles. And look at the length of that start-finish straight. It's very conducive to a slipstream and a move down into the first corner.
Right, so for those that aren't familiar with it, talk to me about the slipstream, or as anyone who watches Formula One might prefer to know it as, the toe. Talk to me about it.
So when we talk about the toe, what we mean is that effect where the car running behind another car on a straight gets a boost in straight line speed, basically just because of physics. So imagine you're pushing your spoon through some water, all right? You're pushing all those water particles out the way. If you got another spoon and put it right behind that first spoon, it wouldn't be pushing all that water out the way. Most of the water's already been moved. So it would move a lot faster. You'd have to use a lot less effort to push that following spoon around. It's the same with cars in the air. They're going so fast that the air resistance is quite high by the time they're getting towards top speed. The car in second has already had all that air pushed out the way, so they don't need to push all those air molecules out the way, and that means that they get a higher top speed. And then what happens is they'll start to catch the car ahead. Then they'll have to pull out, but because they've already got that speed delta, that higher speed will continue for a while, and that's why they're able to get past, even though once they pull out from behind the car in front, really they're not getting that toe anymore.
So right now we're on board with Serrano. We've just moved into qualifying as well.
Yes, we absolutely have. Ignore that checkered flag in the top left. That will clear soon because we are starting qualifying. As soon as these drivers put a lap on the board, we will see those current laps all start to get removed, and we'll see what the true pace of these cars are. We don't know in qualifying if there was a difference in the setups they were using, but right now they will all be in qualifying setups or fixed setup, because I believe this is an open series. GT3, the only series we are running this season that has open setups because it's a bit more of a serious series. So we don't know if setups played a role in those differences in the practice times, and we won't know until we see what all of these drivers can do when push comes to shove in qualifying.
Now, I really like open setups because that gives you the ability to tune your car to the way that you drive. Now, there are some drivers, like who we've already talked about, Fernando Alonso, who will famously just jump into any car and drive it the way that it needs to be driven. But for those of us who are not racing gods, we have our own unique styles. Personally, I prefer a car with a bit of a looser rear end, and having an open setup gives you the ability to tailor the car's handling characteristics to the way that you like to drive it. So, being an open setup series, we're going to see drivers in their element, driving the way they like to drive in the cars that they have chosen.
Oh, 100%. You are correct there. We are going to get drivers at their absolute peak. The downside, of course, to a open setup is that those drivers that have a little bit less time to prepare, they will find themselves more on the back foot. They're coming in not knowing if their setup is perhaps just inherently slower than some other drivers. But car setup is one of the biggest differentiators between the top level drivers, and that's why we like to see it in our top level series, which is the GT3 series on the ANZ esports platform.
Right, so let's have a talk about Serrano yet. He's yet to set I guess what I would call a...
Representative?
Yes, a representative lap. Thank you for the bailout.
You're
He had a
welcome.
little... We were watching him in the last round, or the last lap, and he had a little bit of an upset during one of those corners where he hit a curb a little bit too hard, got a little bit airborne. For anyone that was astute enough and paying attention. So we can see that right now, where is he? He's about 1.5 seconds behind our leader on a 1:38.8. But we've got him out now. He may have had to make a slight adjustment for a car that spun out in front of him, but I would really like to see if he's turned on this lap and what sort of a benchmark he's going to set for everyone else out on track.
What I'd really like to see, actually, if we can get it, is to get an onboard with Sarong as he goes around the next lap, just so we can talk through this track, some of the corners they're facing, and really see what challenges they are going to have to overcome if they're going to take pole position for the first round of the ANZ ESeries GT3 League.
Oh, we will absolutely do that. We're coming down the main straight right now, so let's jump on board with Serrano as we cross the start-finish line.
He's going to get a lovely tow from the car ahead. Actually, he's a bit too far back once we hop on board. You can see he's not really close enough to the car ahead to get a good tow. You want to be within about 2 seconds to start getting a tow, 1 second to get the best of it. And we're going to come down into this downhill, really tight hairpin for the first corner. And it's a corner that you really want to get onto the power early, because you then have to push the car all the way up this hill towards the second corner. From here,
one of the things that I'm noticing about Serrano right now is just how much of the track he's using.
oh yeah, 100%. It's the simplest way to gain lap time, is just to use more of the track, because it opens the radius of every corner, and I'll explain that in a little bit more detail once we've gone through this lap. But you can see every corner he is getting on those curves as he approaches the fast right-hander. This is downhill, this will be flat out, and then we get to one of the trickiest corners on the circuit. Really hard to pick your braking point, and the elevation changes here. This is when you start coming back up the hill. You've got this really tight hairpin, and you need to make it even tighter, because you need to open up the second part so you can get on the throttle as early as you can there, straighten up, get to the curb here, carry as much speed through this right-hander that you come across the top of a crest there, and it makes the back end of the car get really light. So watch for some cars to spin there. They're also going to spin here, particularly the Porsches I've seen in previous GT3 races have a lot of trouble at that corner. These long radius corners where you're in the corner for a long time just tends to make the back end one step out as soon as you start getting on the throttle. And that final corner, crucial, because look how long the straight is. Look how long you are full throttle after that final corner. That means you need to get on the accelerator as early as possible, otherwise you're giving up time hand over fist.
So, the real important thing about what has just happened to poor Serrano is that this last corner represents the most important corner on the track. Look at that. That's a fastest lap, a 1:38.323. And did we see how much he was getting impeded during that?
he had cars in front of him the whole time, but I don't think anywhere close enough to impede him too much. At worst, it would have been a distraction. Of course, the big exception being that spin we saw in front of him coming into the at the penultimate corner.
So let's have a chat about. Let's have a chat about Christensen. Do we know much about this guy? He's second right now. It's a half a second behind, but he's right now second.
Yeah, I believe he's a. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe he's a member of Vermilion Motorsports. I saw him hanging around the chat last night, and we thank Vermilion Motorsports for going for the effort of setting up a completely new league. It's great what they're doing. They're trying to make it as open as possible. So look in the Discord to see details about like the finances, see details about what they're thinking for next season. The idea is to be as open as possible, so that. Just to try and differentiate themselves from the other leagues that they've been in, and felt perhaps that they didn't know enough about how the series is run, so they decided to do it themselves and get that information out there, just so that everybody knows exactly what is going on and try to make it the best run series and hold themselves accountable. So yeah, I think Christensen is a member of Vermilion Motorsport, but again, please do correct me if I am wrong in that, either in the YouTube chat or via a DM on Discord. He's currently half a second behind, which is quite a big gap, but as we said, this is such a driver circuit that a normal circuit you'd expect that to only be around a couple of attempts. I'm interested to see what he can do before the end of this session, because we don't know how much practice each driver has had, and that's going to be a big differentiator for how much time they gain during this session.
Yeah, you know what? That's not something I had thought about until you mentioned it just then. I know that there are guys that are out there, and they are freaks. I know one of them myself. He does no practice, he turns up on race day, and he's just top 5 all the time. He's got a ton of real-life racing, and he personally mentored me in a lot of kart racing. But this guy's a freak. And I know that there's guys like this on track, and then there are guys that spend a week rote learning these tracks, and that's more me. I'm not quite the natural that I would like to be. I have to really put in time to make sure that I memorize the tracks. I've got my braking markers. You know what they say? Practice until you cannot make a mistake.
It's really hard to do that. I make a lot of mistakes, so I would be practicing forever if I practiced until I didn't make a mistake, and I never actually get to race. I'm definitely the other school. I'm more of a natural person. I tend not to memorize braking points so much. I tend to go more off the feel. That said, I'm not nearly as quick as anybody in this session, so I wouldn't dare compare myself to any of the top guys in this session. But it's a real point of difference between drivers, and you can see it even at top level. You compare the likes of, at Ferrari in the Formula 1, Charles Leclerc to Carlos Sainz. Charles Leclerc is very much that field driver, isn't he? He's got this incredible ability to extract the maximum from a car almost immediately. Verstappen's the same. Then you look at Carlos Sainz, and he's someone that builds through the weekend, getting faster each and every session as he really gets those braking points down, as he increases the precision, 102 meters instead of 100 meters. That'd be the kind of thing that I imagine is going on in his head, and he's really good at like looking at the data and then figuring out how the car has to be driven to go fast. Whereas some drivers, they just hop in a car and they just know. They just instinctually know from the behavior of the car what they need to do to gain time, and they'll call it out while they're racing. They'll go, "I lost a tenth there," and sometimes even the race engineers won't really know that they lost a tenth there because they haven't seen them go any quicker than that. But they'll know.
You just have that feeling, and certainly from my limited experience with real life racing, when you're on a good lap, you know it, you feel it. And I can say that when you're on a flyer, it gets harder. Every corner that goes by seems to come quicker, and the stress builds up because you start thinking to yourself, I'm on a flyer, this is the best I've done, I cannot make a mistake or I'm going to lose this. And every corner that you do, you feel like okay, cool, I've got that one in the bank, I've banked that one, that's a good one. And the stress of making a mistake and then ruining what you think was probably your best lap. So kudos to every driver out on track there, because that's what they are all feeling right now. They're going corner after corner after corner against some of the best drivers that we have, and they're feeling a stress.
And that's just when you're comparing yourself to yourself. it gets even worse when you start comparing yourself to the other drivers and I've got to find 0.3 of a second to get to Sarong. If you are currently Jamie Christensen, who we are watching right now, he knows he's got those 0.3 to find. So every corner he's thinking, now I need to make it in only 5 corners. Now I've only got 4 corners to make it. Now I've only got 3 corners to make it. And it can lead you to making a mistake because you go looking for time that just isn't there because you actually lost it earlier in the lap. As we see some drivers pulling over rather than driving all the way back to the pits to reset and get a refuel. They're just going to pull over, let the towing do the work. While they're towing, they're going to have a look at their lap, see where they could improve, and then go back out and try and beat it. And that pressure increases each and every lap because you've got less and less opportunities left to try and get back. These guys coming out of the pit lane now, they'll be coming on to potentially their final 1 or 2 flying laps.
Yeah, so we've only got 6 minutes left. So one of the big problems in qualifying, and particularly because we haven't really talked at all about the qualifying format that we're going with here. So we're using an open qualifying format, which is more like what you would see in any real-life racing series, where you've got all the drivers out on track at the same time, vying for position. And we've already seen it a few times, where drivers ahead of you spin out. You're on a flyer, you're doing really well, and then through no mistake of your own, you find yourself having to abort, what was your best lap, and it takes prep as well. So when you come out of the pits, you've got cold tires and a full fuel load. Now, normally these cars are fueled for only a couple laps, because that's all you need. Carrying any more becomes a disadvantage, just like in every other form of motorsport. In sim racing, it's exactly the same. The more fuel you carry, the more weight you carry, the slower you're going to get around this track. And so Fitzroy Beaumont, he's just come out of the pits now. He's got cold tires and full fuel. And it's his out lap as well. So he's got this lap, he's going to burn through a bit of fuel, get those tires up to temperature, and sort of like get his head in as well. He's going to calibrate himself to the corners. You come out of the pits and you're like, okay, all right, let's chill for this lap, and then we're going to warm up and we're going to get into it.
And the thing is, on that out lap, you can't just completely relax because you do have to get the tires up to temperature. The other thing you're doing is you're getting a feel for the track conditions. You need to know how much grip is at each corner before you approach it on your next lap. Otherwise, you're going to leave time on the board. If you're trying to hunt for the grip as you get to the corner, you will leave time on the board. So there's a balancing act to be made between keeping it safe, but also doing just enough to get a feel for how much grip you think there is at each corner, so you can go maximum attack for the next lap. And that's what we're about to see from Fitzroy Beaumont in the lime green Porsche GT3. Let's stay with this lap and see how he goes. He's coming into the first corner, the tight right-hander, we ought to cut it. He's going to brake, he's going to try and get right into that apex. Look for him to kiss that curb, get next to that board. He does so perfectly. How close does he get to the curb on the exit? Right on the curb, just with the left tyres. Not enough to upset the car, but enough to maximise that. Now he's coming to a really difficult blind left-hander. He doesn't get much view there of what's coming up, how wide that corner is on exit, and he's judged that to absolute perfection. Next, you got this long uphill right-hander that tightens at the end. Gotta make sure you hit this bit right, because you're gonna need to get to right very quickly so you can open up this corner. And
be
again,
careful not to go too far to the left as well, because you've got those really dangerous yellow sausage curbs that are just constantly there threatening to upset your car and ruin your lap.
Oh, if you hit any of those yellow curves, you can kiss your lap goodbye. They are absolutely treacherous. If you go beyond the curb on any of these corners, that's it, it's game over, except for maybe that corner, because you can straighten out and hit that yellow curb, but it is dangerous and you will break your suspension if you keep doing it in a race. Although in qualifying, doing it only once, you're probably going to get away with it. Looks like a tidy lap so far from Fitzroy. I'll be interested to see how fast he is at the end of this.
That's the caster curse if I've ever seen that. Just a little bit of oversteer there. And if we're looking at Fitzroy right now in the distance to the drivers before and in front of him, he's got 1/100th of a second between him and Hammer in front of him. And I'll be interested to see, with that little mistake, where he's going to come up. You can see him taking a real tidy line straight to the corner here, all the way onto the right.
And there you go, he moves up into 8th place, gains a few positions, but still over a second down on our benchmark time. Even with the big oversteer, how much do you reckon that cost? 3 or 4 tenths?
I reckon there's anywhere from 3 tenths to 3 to 5 tenths on that, I think.
And it's such a small mistake.
And look what 3 to 5 tenths does to his position. So he's to 8th right now. If you take 3 tenths off, suddenly he's looking at 5th and 6th.
Yeah, all of a sudden he's in that kind of position where if you get a lightning start, you could take the lead of the race going into the first corner. There's enough of a rundown that if you do get a good start, it's going to make a huge difference to the position of your car relative to your competitors before you get to the first corner. There's not like some tracks where you have a piddly little run to the first corner, and at best you can maybe make one overtake. At a track like this, you get it right, and the cars in front of you don't. You can make 3 or 4 positions before the first corner, let alone if you can hang it out around the outside and get the inside cut for turn 2. You can make 5-6 positions if you really nail it. But he's going to have a lot to do from 8th if he wants to get towards the podium positions.
So let's have a quick look. So 8th, we have Beaumont at 1.1, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drivers within 2/10 of each other. That one mistake by Fitzroy on that last lap has cost him the difference between 8th and 4th on the grid.
Yeah, it's a huge,
Those are the
huge
margins
difference.
we're playing with.
Such a small mistake as well. It's what we want to see though, isn't it? We want to see a nice tight field because that means we're going to get brilliant racing when the race starts in just under 2 minutes time. But what's really caught my eye is that gap between the top 3 and the rest of the field. I think our podium battle is starting to take shape already, and we're only in qualifying.
So Brunt's just crossed the line, and so I believe, does he get to finish this lap? Is this his last lap?
This will be his last lap. I believe you can finish your lap if you are on 1 when the checkered flag comes out.
So we have Matthew Brunt out on track right now, and who else do we have? He's only just shy of 2/10 down from Serrano, and it looks like he might be the only driver, perhaps, that could challenge Serrano in this race.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if you are right. Within 2/10 of Serrano, that's going to be enough if he stays in the slipstream to really be able to hassle Serrano. And if he can stay there for the entirety of the race, you would have better go against a move in the last couple of laps to try and take the victory. I think Christensen may also be fast enough to get involved in that hunt for the win, only 3/10 back, and that's certainly within attacking distance of Serrano, but Serrano definitely and literally in pole position, taking the first ever pole position of the GT3 Championship with Brunt alongside him on the front row.
Right, so let's have a look at our grid as it stands for the very first heat of the very first race.
And we'll see if we can fix that and get the GT3 cars instead of the hypercars showing.
We definitely have no hypercars in here.
Maybe that's a future league will bring. Nope, they're still hypercars.
We'll have to work this one out. Bear with us.
Yeah, apologies for some technical difficulties. This is of course our first stream of the season, so we are doing our best, but they will have the occasional hiccup, so don't worry about it. I was going to say third time lucky, but that's proven unlucky. So we'll keep going with that.
We've got some technical difficulties here with the system holding on to a previous session state. So we'll work on that, and hopefully we can get that working for future series.
Yeah. In the meantime, can we get the timings up in the top left from the previous session, or have they disappeared now? Here we go. So we'll run you through this what seems to be the starting order. It looks like the correct order, and we'll correct it if we notice any mistakes. So we got Serrano on the pole position, Matthew Brunt alongside him on the front row, Jamie Christensen in 3rd place, and then in 4th place we've got Joshua Horton. In 5th place, Casey Jones, and alongside him Ash Davis. Then Obersteller and Beaumont make up the 4th row. Behind them, Nixon and Hanmar. They round out the top 10. After that, we've got Velicott and Patterson, then Grubb alongside Bird, Milne alongside Byrne, and behind them, there's a rotating cast of players, so I have to wait for that to correct itself. Lubin Atkinson, then we've got Hayes and Hancock, Kakushik, and apologies if I've just butchered that surname, I will improve that by the end. Faulkner in 22nd, Doyle in 23rd, and then
Ben Miles.
in 24th, Ben Miles.
So I will note that these last few guys are actually racing the Porsche today. So they are at a slight disadvantage. That's why they are at the back of the grid.
That's the Porsche Cup car, correct?
That is the Porsche Cup car.
Absolutely. So interesting note that we've got what is apparently a Ferrari at the head of the field. Is that graphic correct?
I believe that
No, it's
graphic
just,
is correct. That's the
it is
Ferrari
Korean.
of Serrano, which is the only Ferrari until we get all the way back to ninth.
Yeah, I believe the where you see that the manufacturer is missing, I believe those are the new Porsches. I would hazard a guess. We've then got a BMW in 5th and 7th place, more Ferraris in 9th and 10th, BMW in 11th, Ferrari in 12th, BMW in 13th, and a Lamborghini's way down the field, and some of the older Porsches. So certainly the new Porsches dominating this series at the moment, but with a Ferrari on pole, just like they were for Le Mans. And let's see if they can repeat the 24 Hours of Le Mans and take victory here today.
So have a chat to me about our starting. This is a rolling start, right?
We are having a rolling start, yes. So in this, the cars will line up 2 by 2. The second place car does need to leave a little bit of a margin to first place car. They can be pretty much alongside, but you don't want to be in front. That would be a mistake. But what this means is it encourages 2 by 2 driving down into the first corner, which is great fun. But it also makes the start a little bit safer than a standing start because you don't get those massive differences in speed that you see. But don't mistake it for being easier than a standing start. It's just different. It is no easier than a standing start. It's really difficult to get a good launch from a rolling start. It's just as crucial as for a standing start, but it's just a little bit safer. And the cars are already 2 by 2, and hopefully they stay like that until the first corner. And the safety car now peels away, so Serrano will lead the field. The flags will go green, and he will absolutely floor it, and we'll get racing. Safety car is still there. Safety car hasn't peeled off. Apologies. Looked like it was peeling off, but it's still there.
It's quite the long formation lap that we've got here. There it is, peeling off now. So now we're on to Serrano, and it is on him to kick this off, and here we go.
He's already got a great head start from Brunt. He's going to come under attack from Christensen immediately. We're going to change the camera angle because we can't see a thing. There we go. We got Serrano. He's leading the field. He's not going to be under attack. Brunt is in second. Oh,
who's
that? That's Hanmer. Hanmer's off. Oh, he's come back onto the track as well. Hopefully everyone's been able to avoid him. We've got side by side here between Brunt and Christensen. Christensen looks like he's got the position, but it's going to be on the outside going into the next corner. That's not going to help him. I imagine Brunt's going to get that back in. Yeah, he yields, but he gets a great run out of that.
Oh, he parked it in the middle of that corner there, which is going to back him up. That is a great move. I love seeing that.
Just saw the brake light up for a second just to stop Christensen from having the run, make him have to check up. Christensen dives down the inside here anyway. He's going to get the move done. Absolutely beautiful. Christensen is, of course, running a special livery that you can see there. It's a Boogie Bomb livery, which means all the sponsorships have been hand-drawn on in paint, which is why it's quite a unique livery, and it's one of the things we love to see. Love seeing all the liveries of the different cars. Yeah, just look at that, with all the bold black letters. Oh, we've got Chaos now in the back. Here. That's one of the Vermilion Motorsport cars. Was that Ash Davis? No, Casey Jones tumbling down the field. We'll definitely bring you some replays of some of the incidents we've already had. Too much for us to call live already, which is what we love to see. Nixon's just got a position from Obestella a bit further up the field. We're currently watching Ash Davis, who's one of the cars that got caught up in that mayhem. There's another car spun now that is just overtaken. Now we're on board with one of the Vermilion Motorsport cars as he chases down what I believe is a Lamborghini ahead of him. The Vermilion Motorsport car being the BMW you got on your screen with a distinctive black and red livery. Not the only Vermilion Motorsport livery. We'll see a few different versions throughout the series, but being a series run by Vermilion Motorsport, we're going to have a few Vermilion drivers out there. And let's see if this one wants to make a move down to the first corner. We're going 3 wide in the foreground, just going off your screen. And we're 2 wide there with the Ferrari and the Porsche. And then we've got the Lamborghini and the BMW there, this apparently being Casey Jones. No, I didn't see that move. Here we go. We're now on board with Connor Nixon. Connor Nixon trying to chase down Fitzroy Beaumont ahead of him. Beaumont being one of the fastest drivers that we know of in iRacing. So that's not going to be a easy overtake at all. It looks like Beaumont's already got damage, so he must have been involved in one of those earlier incidents. And you can actually tell by the timing screen, look at that 4.5 second gap. I know Sorono and Christensen were quick, as was Matthew Brunt, but they're not quite that quick. That is the impact of having so many early incidents, and we've already got a split in the field.
Yeah, so we're seeing 4.4 to Fitzroy and Brunt, and then we've got our 3 leaders, the same 3 guys that topped the qualifying session, unless I'm mistaken.
Yes, they are the same 3 guys that topped the qualifying session, although Brunt and Christensen have swapped order, as we saw that overtake in the first lap. Beautiful overtake from Christensen after they'd gone side by side for a couple of corners. We're now watching Christensen. He's staying with Sorono pretty well. Sorono in that distinctive black and white Ferrari. Christensen running the Boogie livery.
So we talked about the toe earlier, but now we're going to see it. Look at Christensen here, tucking right up in behind Sorono. Now,
Yeah,
that Ferrari might actually be a little faster on the straights, because we're seeing that gap, and it's actually gone up.
Yeah, it's one of the beautiful things about GT3 racing is every car makes their speed in a different way. They are all roughly even in terms of overall performance in an ideal scenario. In our racing, they're not quite balanced, but they're certainly close enough. And what you'll see is the Porsche is fantastic through the corners. It is absolutely beautiful. The Ferrari is actually one of the best overall packages. It's not particularly deficient in any area, is my understanding, but it's also not the best in any area. And here we go. We've got to move for the lead. Side by side, almost touch going on an entry to the corner.
Diving up on the inside. It looks like they're neck and neck here, but Sorono's got the inside for this next corner. And if you know much about racing, you know the inside is where you want to be.
Oh no, Christensen's shaping up to take the inside for the next corner.
Oh no! Got contact! They've both
go
wide.
wide. Brunt's going to take the lead.
No,
not quite.
No, he holds onto it.
And I think what you saw there was Christensen going nice and slow through that complex to allow Sorono to maintain the lead rather than effectively gain the lead from a punt. It'll be interesting to see if our live race control make anything of that incident.
Oh, see, we just saw the effects of those sausage curbs. Is Sorono perhaps carrying some damage here? That seems like a mistake that we wouldn't expect to see from him.
Yeah, getting a bit wide and absolutely smashing into that yellow curb. You saw that front of the car bunny hopping along. Hopefully he's not carrying any damage, though. If he is, we'll know soon, because it will slow him down on this straight and open the attack up for Christensen and Brunt. I think Brunt is the man to watch here. He is right behind Christensen in that blue car. Is he going to dive for the inside late on here? No, he's going to sit behind.
Content to sit there for now. Yes, I'll be really interested to see whether or not our stewards have anything to say about that punt. Now, the positions haven't changed, but it does seem to me that perhaps the loser in this situation was Brunt. We had 2 cars go off, and one of them had to take the escape, and somehow he has still stayed in 3rd.
Yeah, I think it happened at the wrong part of the track, didn't it? I do think that Christensen scrubbed off a load of speed going through that really tight complex, and Brunt just had no way to get past, and perhaps thinking that the sporting thing was not to punish Christensen for trying to do the right thing and redress the position to Sorono. That's only speculation. I haven't seen the onboard, and I haven't seen them through that complex enough to know, to be able to like accurately judge how fast they were compared to normal. But that definitely looks faster than when the incident occurred, and we saw Sorono going through the bollards there and taking his time, because it's really hard to go through them, because you have to go left and right and salar them through them at a really slow pace, and that's to discourage anyone from cutting through and getting an advantage and then leaving it to the stewards to adjudicate. Because in iRacing, of course, a lot of the time you do not have live stewards, and you're relying on the automatic penalty system to do its job. Of course, that's not the case in this league. Every race has live race control. Every race has a broadcast.
So, let's have a quick chat. We've got the positions gained up here on the screen, so we can see who our big movers are.
Yeah, and there are some big movers, and that's what you get when you have so much chaos early on. Of course, there'll be a mixture of genuine overtakes and basically capitalizing off other people's misfortune there. You look at the big movers, Bird, Mill, Byrne, they've all moved in lockstep, all up 7 positions. Connor Nixon, he's up 5 positions, and he's a threat in every single car that he drives. And then you look at the losers, Jones, Davis, Horton down 9 positions. He really stands out, as does Hanmar and Velicott down 9 and 7 positions respectively. They're the drivers that really got involved in those first lap incidents, and we'll try and bring you footage of some of those soon now that the race has calmed down just a little bit out the front.
Well, let's have a look here. It looks like Fitzroy, Beaumont, and Aaron are having a little bit of a battle here, with Aaron attempting a little bit of a move on the inside there.
Yeah, they were definitely side by side through that corner. Not sure what happened for there to be such a big gap between them now. And look at that beautiful livery from Obersteller. That is absolutely gorgeous in my book. I'm sure some people will say the exact opposite, but I love a colourful livery in the commentary. It makes it really easy to tell who is who. Of course, Beaumont also running a distinctive lime green livery that's nice and easy to spot on the broadcast. Currently, looks like Obersteller is just content to sit behind Beaumont, not really launching an attack, not getting right up his gearbox, and instead is going to wait to see if Beaumont makes a mistake.
So
but it could be
a
fuel
real
saving
tactic
as well.
in racing as well. So sometimes it's important to fight for positions, and sometimes you have to understand that if you and the driver that you're racing with are competing with each other, you're going to lose time to those in front of you, and lose time to those who are behind you as well. So if we have a look at these two drivers at the moment, they're sort of almost in no man's land. So we'll bring back up the gap, and you can see even on screen right now that there's a big distance between those in front and those in behind. And as I say that, looks like Aaron's going on a move here, and he's got the inside, and Fitzroy is just going to have to give this one up. Looking for the switchback though.
You saw Fitzroy getting wide, the back end of the car, having a bit of a snake moment, and that's just what's allowed Obersteller to get in front. Now the question is, who's got more pace? Obersteller or Beaumont? Because whoever it is, they're going to be the one that wants... Now both drivers will want in the lead, with the hope that the other one is close enough in pace to just sit behind them and let them drag you up to the car ahead. I suspect from what we've seen, this might be the correct order with Obersteller ahead, but saying that, Beaumont is really pushing to get past and get that position. He does not like being overtaken.
Those positions that we see on the left, I believe they will update as the drivers cross the start-finish line.
Yeah, so let's watch here. Beaumont behind Obersteller. That gap's just increased for the last few corners. Whether that's Obersteller absolutely nailing it or Beaumont just deciding to leave a bit of a gap in case Obersteller makes a mistake, we don't know because we can't read minds. But I do think it may have been Beaumont just trying to make sure he can get the best run onto the start-finish straight with the look of making a move down into the first corner, using that slipstream that we've spoken about so often already on this stream to try and gain an advantage, but nothing happening so far. Just not going to be even nearly close enough to make a move into the first corner, and watch all the cars in the line as they all try and get that slipstream.
So one thing I'd like to talk about here, so we talk about this battle between Fitzroy and Aaron. So Aaron has made the mistake of doing what we would call defending clean air. Fitzroy's too far back to make a move, but he's taken that inside defensive line, which allows Fitzroy to stay wide and effectively straighten out that corner as much as possible.
Yeah, the problem is with that first corner is it is so wide that if you don't defend at all, the other driver can make a lunge from really far back and make it stick if you're not careful. So Obersteller deciding that discretion was the better part of valor, and they just make sure the defender's inside. But like you said, it's going to cost both of them time to the likes of Nixon and Brunt in ahead of them. So they need to make a decision now. Are they settling for 5th and 6th place, or do they want 4th? Do they even have eyes on a cheeky podium if something happens? Because if that is the case, they need to stop battling, stop defending clean air, get the hammer down.
If I were Fitzroy right now, what are we looking at? He's losing quite a bit of time to Aaron. I would be just looking at sucking up behind him in that tow and just staying with him. Because at the moment, it looks like Aaron might have the bettering of Fitzroy. He's opened that gap up to 0.8 of a second, 0.9, and still increasing as we go down the straight here. If I'm not mistaken, those BMWs are very quick on the straights.
They are very quick on the straights. It's definitely one of the advantages of the BMW, as it is the Mercedes. The Mercedes is an absolute rocket ship down the straights. Interesting to note as well, look at the gap between Sorono and Christensen in the battle for the lead. 2.5 seconds now. Sorono with a comfortable gap over Christensen. Not enough that he can afford to make a big mistake, but going a little bit deep scrubbing off a bit too much speed in the corner. That's not going to matter. He can afford to let his foot off the gas ever so slightly with just under 13 minutes of Heat 1 left. And of course, we've got 2 races to bring you tonight. The second race is going to be a reverse grid top 10, also 25 minutes in length. That should be a cracker because we're going to have to see how the likes of Serrano, Christensen and Brunt make their way through traffic. Closest battles on track at the moment are Christensen and Brunt in the battle for second place. What we've got on screen, and have had on screen for a few laps now, Obersteller defending from Fitzroy Beaumont. You then got Casey Jones, who's got the fastest lap of the race, which is an impressive effort, chasing down David Milne, and he's got Ash Davis right behind him.
So we have a bit of an update here. We've got a couple of penalties that have just come out. So car number 2 has a 10-second post-race penalty for an incident earlier.
And that's Fitzroy Beaumont, so that's going to put him... Well, he's already behind Obersteller, but that's going to put him behind Bird, Milne, Jones, Davis. It's going to knock him out of the top 10.
He'll be devastated about that. I'd be interested to see what lap that occurred on, and if maybe potentially we can pull up a replay of this. But we do have another one as well. So car number 14 has unfortunately managed to get themselves a drive-through penalty of all things, which is in terms of penalties that you can receive in race, a drive-through represents one of them. Oh, big crash here.
Oh, that's huge. That is huge. What's happened there? So they've made contact going down the straight.
All right, let's bring this one back up. I think we can get a replay of this one. All right, so here we are. We're on board with him right now. Currently looking at Casey Jones.
So Casey Jones is in the middle of this in the Vermilion Motorsport liveried BMW. He's in the middle of a Porsche sandwich. Gets a bit of a squirrel on that curb.
It looks like he fancied to move up the inside there.
So what's going to happen here?
It all looks pretty tame for right now. So he's alongside, looking for the move on the inside into this corner. Oh, is that...
Netcode?
That might have been netcode. They looked like they were just straight up side by side, didn't they?
They did.
Maybe...
I think we'll have to get another camera angle to know for sure.
So we'll head back to our live race now.
Yeah, Casey Jones getting the toe back to pit lane. That'll rule him out of this race. It means he won't be in the reverse grid top 10 for race 2, but he'll look to see what he can do from the back of the field in race 2. Can still have a good fun and hopefully get a good result after that bit of bad luck of what looks like netcode taking him out of the action as we rejoin the battle for 6th place with Fitzroy Beaumont and Aaron Obersteller.
I think Fitzroy here,
the battle for 5th.
If he's aware, and I'm presuming at this point he probably is, his penalty, I think at this point you just have to accept that there's really no point in taking the risk in fighting Aaron for position here, because it's not going to impact your race in any meaningful way, and he just needs to just sit behind him and see where it pans out at the end of the race and what those 10 seconds do. Because if you can just suck up behind him in the toe, get along and just build up as big a gap as possible to those drivers behind him.
Oh, 100%. And the penalties lessened even more because you get a better starting position for the next race, because both of these drivers are, of course, in the top 10. So 6th place in this race becomes a 5th place starting position for the next race. So it doesn't make a huge difference. You only really got to want to push and go for the move if you definitely think you've got the pace to beat the car ahead and that you'll be able to pull away from them, or if there's a guilt-laden opportunity to get past because they make a big mistake, just like that one there, getting not a great run onto the start-finish straight. That's maybe enough for Beaumont to mount a move going into the first corner. But like so often, just look at that BMW pulling away. It doesn't matter that the Porsche looked like it got a better run. The BMW can just absolutely monster that straight, gobble up the meters and arrive at the first corner with plenty of gap to the car behind.
It's also worth noting that because we're using fixed setups here, these drivers could be running different levels of downforce, which is going to affect their performance on these straights.
It certainly is, and I think Race Control have disagreed with our call on that incident with Casey Jones, number 30, getting a drive-through penalty.
Jones. That was that the net code?
I believe that was what we thought was netcode. I may be wrong. It may be in response to a different incident that we didn't see on the broadcast. But that's the big incident that comes to mind in terms of getting a drive-through, which would mean that we were wrong and it wasn't netcode, because you wouldn't give a drive-through for netcode. And of course, we got Sean Doyle doing the ever thankless job of being in the race control booth today, and we thank Sean for what he is doing. There's something more satisfying about seeing drivers punished mid-race rather than afterwards, which is what a lot of leagues do.
Now, I think we just saw a change of position here for Ryan Grubb. We haven't really talked a lot about some of the drivers further down the field, have we?
No, not much. They kind of got detached, didn't they, in that opening scuffle? Well, multiple scuffles that we saw, and it broke the race up a lot. So we haven't had a chance to go back and look at what's going on a bit further down the field. So let's recap on those drivers outside the top 10 and the battles that they're in. Starting here with Grubb, he's in 15th. 14th, apparently. That's disagreeing with the timing screen. The what we got at the bottom there. So I believe he's actually in 15th, and the timing screen is accurate, with Dennis Hancock in 14th, who is 5 seconds ahead. And then we've got behind him Dale Lube, who's just that car that you can see every so often getting into your screen.
Let's get Dale Lube up here on the screen now. Now, I think we actually have a little bit of action happening up further in the field. We've got Ash Davis here, who I believe has just made a move on Curtis Bird. We'll see if we can pick this one up here as well in our replay.
Oh, so the car's reversing for a second there. I can show you that we're actually reversing. That was just a little bit of a quirk of searching for the replay. And now, let's have a look at this overtake. Is this the correct cut? I think this is after the overtake, is it not?
Yes, we might have missed that one. We do apologise for any issues that we're having. We're still early on in our stream, and we'll do our best to get things refined as we continue on, and we'll go back to our live broadcast and racing.
And of course, if you do have any feedback for the stream, technical difficulties aside, we will iron those out as we go through this, our first season of bringing you this stream. We will endeavour to do our best to improve the broadcast and make it one of the best broadcasts in iRacing. And of course, a lot of work has already gone into bringing you this beautiful, clean overlay that we have, which is a testament to the persons involved in bringing you this broadcast and all the hard work that's gone on behind the scenes from the likes of Ben Faulkner, Colin Nixon, and the others at Vermilion Motorsports. But for now, we've got 4 minutes left, so we'll focus a bit more on the racing. Curtis Bird trying to get his position back from Ash Davis. No going there. He's fallen a bit behind, over half a second, which is going to be too far back to make a move unless there's a very obvious mistake from Ash Davis. And it seems at this point like Ash Davis just has the legs to pull away from Curtis Bird.
So this looks like a battle for 7th, but unless I'm mistaken, this is actually battle for 6th, because the 10-second penalty, post-race penalty for Fitzroy is going to put him behind both of these drivers.
Certainly will. So this is a battle for 6th and effectively a battle for 5th place in the starting grid for the next race. So again, it's this awkward position where you do want to get the position. A bird in the hand's better than a bird in the hold, as they say. You want the points on the board, right? You want to get that finishing position because you don't know what chaos is going to happen in race 2, particularly when you've got faster drivers behind you wanting to come through. But the gain is minimal, so you're only really going to go for it if you can be absolutely confident that you're not going to make a mistake, that you're not going to end your race doing something stupid. And with only 2 minutes and 50 seconds left, I think there'll only be 2 laps remaining.
And I think in terms of on-track batters, look, a little bit
And
of a
that's
spin
an
out
obvious
back
mistake.
there.
That's the kind of mistake you need to make an overtake. Ash Davis having a spin and Curtis Bird getting back past him.
All right, let's have a look at that one. We'll see if we can break down exactly how this mistake has come to be, because that's going to be costly for him next race. So as we come down the main straight, he's got a nice wide line, maybe not using as much of the track as possible, and it just looks like just a little bit of oversteer that's gotten out of hand.
I couldn't tell whether that was carrying a little bit too much speed and therefore necessitating a bit too much trail brake, so you've got too much of the weight at the front of the car and that causing the rear of the car to pitch around, or whether that was oversteer on the acceleration or even mid-corner oversteer. So it could have been any one of those things. I couldn't pick it out from the broadcast, but one thing I will say is the Porsches are notorious for oversteer. They are notorious for it. They do tend to just swivel around. They get to a point where you just cannot catch it. And particularly at this corner, that's where I've seen it happen the most, but also at that first corner, as we've just seen.
So having a look at Fitzroy here, he's a quarter of a second behind, and I'm very confident in saying that Fitzroy, this is no longer about positions for Fitzroy. These guys have been battling all race. These guys are teammates as well. I feel like this is a point of pride. The fact that Fitzroy is going to end up multiple places down after receiving his penalty is completely irrelevant at this point. These guys have a point to prove.
We've just seen him almost absolutely obliterate his teammate, going really deep into the first corner, having to dart to the left to avoid the car ahead. Would have been a nasty accident had he made contact, but at least he had the presence of mind to duck out of it, get out from behind Obersteller ahead, and just give up all of that time to avoid an incident. That's what you need to do when you get deep in the brakes. You will get caught out by the car ahead's braking. Every so often you will miss your braking marker and go deep. What you need to do when you've got a car ahead is exactly what Beaumont just did. Good presence of mind to avoid him, but ideally wouldn't have made a mistake, and that's going to guarantee 5th place for Obersteller, short of some sort of large mistake or just taking too much foot off the gas for the last couple of laps.
Well, as we've seen, things can happen really quickly, and Fitzroy's doing a fantastic job here of clawing back all of that distance that he's lost. He was nearly down to a second, and now we're up to 6-7 tenths. He's crawled back 2-3 tenths in just a single lap, but with only 5 seconds left in Heat 1,
it's going to run out of time. But he is going to get one more lap, I believe we've hit the time limit, so when the car crosses the line, we'll get one more lap. We'll see Barney waving the white flag somewhere. It's a random position every single race, I swear. Can never catch him when I want to, and then other times
there he is
there
in the background there.
In the background, doing his job. Our beloved Flag Marshal Barney waving the white flag. This is the final lap and the last of the opportunities for Beaumont to get past Obersteller. You just remarked how much quicker he was last lap than Obersteller, barring that mistake into the first corner. I think that's an indication that just maybe Beaumont's been keeping a little bit in reserve for this race, decided that he couldn't get to the likes of Con Nixon, Jamie Christensen, and now he just bide his time and make a move and just making a mistake as he decided to push with 2 laps remaining. Can he get it done in his final lap? I don't think he's going to get it done, but look how close he is now. The gap visibly shrinking every corner. He seems to appear closer to the multicolored BMW ahead of him. Can he get past? Only 3 or 4 corners remaining. They're going to dive into here. They got the tight right-hander. This is the best overtaking opportunity left on the circuit. He's going to be too far back to do it here. He's going to hope to use the capability of that portion of the slow corners to make a large dent into that gap, though.
Unless he can make a miracle move here, that's it, because this BMW is just going to walk away from him as soon as we hit this straight line.
His only hope is that he can get a much better exit out the final corner and maybe pip him before the start-finish straight, but it's going to have to be something miraculous for him to get past, or a mistake from Obersteller. Obersteller having made so few mistakes this race, that's not likely, and yeah, he takes the final corner clearly, and they're going to cross the line as they are, 4th and 5th, and we missed Serrano taking a dominant victory, 6.5 seconds in the end, the gap to Matthew Brunt. Matthew Brunt obviously in second. Christensen 1.5 seconds in third. Looked like he was challenging Brunt for a large part of the race, but just fell off in the last 4 or 5 laps. Connor Nixon in no man's land takes home 4th place, way behind 3rd, well ahead of 5th. Obersteller defends from Beaumont for the majority of the race to bring it home in 5th. Beaumont in 6th, Bird 7th, Davis 8th. Byrne in 9th, and David Atkinson gets pole position for race 2 with a 10th place finish, 2 seconds ahead of Tyson Hanmer.
So on balance, look at the gap here between these drivers, and let's have a look at exactly where Beaumont is going to finish up once these penalties get applied.
Oh, of course, the 10-second penalty. Forgot that. That's going to knock him way down the order.
I'm seeing that Fitzroy is actually only going to lose 1 place here. So he's 18 and a half seconds behind the leader, and once we add those 10 seconds, it looks like that's only going to put him behind Bird. You know, for a 10-second penalty in a race, that's not too bad.
That's really not too bad. He'll be really happy that it was a 25-minute race and not a 15-minute race. Otherwise, that would have been a lot more catastrophic for his race 2 hopes. And what it's going to do is it's going to give him a better starting position for race 2 as well. Instead of starting in what would have been 5th place, he's going to start in 4th place, which is not a bad starting position at all. On the second row, can definitely make an early punt for the lead from there. What I hope to see in race 2, though, is some cleaner racing in those first couple of laps so that we don't get a field that's really, really spread out almost immediately.
You know, that's something I didn't think about until you briefly touched on it just then. But Beaumont, does his starting position, is that determined by where he finished in the race or where he finishes on balance after penalties are applied?
That's a good question because it's a penalty not in the iRacing system. So I'm not sure whether Race Control are able to activate that before the start of race 2 or whether it will be adjusted by our boffins in the background after the race. So I guess we'll have to wait and see whether that affects the starts for the next race or whether it'll just affect the points when the points are tallied at the end of the round. So we'll just have a bit of a gap between race 1 and race 2. What was your highlight from race 1?
It's got to be this battle between Beaumont and Oberstelle. Just I don't know if there's a particular highlight between these two, but they look to be the closest matched 2 drivers in the field. We saw just all race, they were within... was there ever a time where there were more than a second between one another?
I'm not sure there was. They were glued to each other the whole race. It was like there was an elastic band. The further one got away from the other, the quicker the one behind clawed the gap back.
Right? Now, it looks to me, and I'm sure that they will make a point of correcting me after the race, but it looked like Beaumont may actually have had a little bit more pace in hand than Oberstelle, but Oberstelle just drove an icy cold, flawless race.
Yeah, he really did. And I think Beaumont left it a bit late to make the charge. Definitely looked like he tried to step it up a little bit for the last 2, maybe 3 laps. But it just left too much to do, didn't it? He put himself under a lot of pressure to get the move done, and that's what triggered the mistake into turn 1. Would have loved to have seen who would have come out ahead without that mistake. But that's what happens if you leave it a little bit too late, leave yourself a little bit too much to do. And I'm sure he's going to want to make up for that in race 2.
So one of the things I'm really excited to see next, and we'll make sure that we've got eyes on him for the race start, but because we're doing reverse grids, we're going to see Serrano starting in 10th. The fastest man out on track, according to qualifying and according to his finishing position, is going to be starting in 10th. And there's a couple of disciplines in racing. So one of them is your single lap pace. Some drivers have got it. They've got single lap pace. Their ability to just put together a qualifying lap and then lead from start to finish, impressive. Like Serrano, I think he led pretty much every lap of that race. There was just actually a small thing with, was it Brunt managed to get in front of him early on?
No, that was a battle for second with Brunt getting past.
That's Christensen. That's correct. Yes, thank you for the correction. But battling and overtaking is another discipline, and that's what I love about these reverse grids. So it makes sure it really puts the measure on whether or not you were like the complete package as a driver, because you've got the guys that can just string together really fast laps, and then you've got the guys that are just in your head and they know how to battle. They make you defend open air and then take wide lines. They'll give up a position, give you the switch back. They're really thoughtful about the positioning of their cars and how that affects you and how you drive and how you defend, either needlessly or importantly. And I would love to see how Serena is going to pick his way through this pack, because he's got the pace, but can he battle?
Yeah, there's no doubt about those paces. He took a dominant victory in race 1, took a pretty dominant pole position. Only 2 drivers within half a second of him. The others, the better part of a second at least behind him. So yeah, like you said, pace. No doubts there. He's absolutely schooled the field in race 1. But what can he do from race 2? It's a different pressure when you know you've got to make overtakes. And I'm really keen to see how he handles it. I bet, if I had to put my money somewhere, I think he's going to be clean, he's going to be clinical, and he's going to make his way back to the front of this field. But don't rule out Brunt and Christensen. This is the kind of thing that when there's only a couple of attempts between you, it gives you that bit of a chance to get a victory. If Brunt and Christensen can make 3 or 4 overtakes on the first lap and Serrano doesn't, that could be the difference. So look where they are after 2 laps, and that will give us a feel for just how intense the battle for the lead is going to be in this race.
So if we have a look at Beaumont here, so he is actually starting in 6th. In front of Bird. So unless I'm mistaken, that means that the penalty that he's received post-race is only affecting his points and not his actual gridding position. Is that right? Does that sound right to you?
That sounds right to me. So we watch the cars. They're about to come down the start-finish straight. We know how late the safety car pulled in last time, so we won't get fooled this time in commentary. And it will be Atkinson who's going to lead them away with Byrne alongside them on the front row. Let's have a look what happens here. And I think that green car is going to need to pull back just a little bit. That's a bit better. Was alongside the car in second place for a little while there.
And we're off. We've got the green flag racing as we get started on heat number 2. Let's see how we go through this first corner. I'm expecting a little bit of carnage here.
You know, because we're going to have to wait a little while for the timing screen to update ourselves. We've got no timing screen to help us know who's battling who. You can see Beaumont and Obersteller there in the rainbow-coloured livery. It looks like Atkinson's been able to hold the lead out front. No, that's the car that was in 3rd place has made his way to the front with that distinctive green livery. I believe that might have been... Who's in the green livery? I did not... Sorry, I completely blanked then. So we've got Fitzroy Beaumont in 2nd place. I believe that's who we're watching. No, that's not Fitzroy Beaumont. That's the wrong car.
Fitzroy. We have another bug showing up with our driver info. We'll see if we can fix that as we check this one out. And so far, clean racing.
Yeah, even with the cars going 2x2, much improved standard of racing so far. Of course, this is where it all came unstuck for a bunch of cars in the first race. Will they get through here cleanly? Looks like they do. Obersteller there on the inside of the Porsche. He's going to get that move done into this corner. They're going to then have the long double apex left-handed to get through. And look at Serrano going all the way around the outside. He's going to have the inside for the penultimate, for the final corner, and that's going to get him the position. I think we saw some cars going off in the background, somebody going wide. And now he's going to get a run to try and attack the Porsche ahead of him. You saw it get a little bit of a squiggle coming out of the corner. That's going to upset his straight line speed. Now, we've got 2 Porsches side by side. They're going to have a similar top speed. The only difference is going to be the difference that they've got because of their setups. Perhaps one of them starting to be a little bit more safe, have a little more downforce. The other one running a skinnier wing. We won't know until we see who comes out ahead. And that's one of the Vermilion Motorsports entries getting ahead of the other Porsche. And let's see if we can get those timings corrected for you as quick as we can. We'll try and get our overlays working for you. For now, we'll just call it as we see it. So there's Serrano. He's in a distinctive black and white liveried Ferrari. Very distinctive, very easy to point out. We got Obersteller ahead of him in the rainbow-coloured BMW. One of the cars we saw on screen a lot in the last race. So that's going to help us pick out those 2. Apologies for those of you whose liveries we're not as confident in until we get... That looks like the correct order in the timing screen now.
And we've got a little bit of contact here.
So that was Byrne and Hanma getting caught together.
And that was
And Oversteller caught up in that.
Oversteller getting knocked back down the order. We'll see how he managed. He's managed to take the exit there, so it's not going to punish him too much compared to the other driver who was facing the other way on the track, which is not the direction that you want to be facing.
It's still going to be incredibly suboptimal, though, to say the least. We're now watching not Fitzroy Beaumont. I can promise you that is Serrano. According to this, he's in 9th place, but I think we need to wait and see what happens when it crosses the line or whether those positions are going to update. Fitzroy Beaumont, he's in the lead of this race. He's just put in the fastest lap. Connor Nixon looking to go with him, but currently 2 seconds behind. Then another second to Matthew Brunt in 3rd, Atkinson in 4th, Christensen in 5th, Hanmar in 6th. And what's happened there? Safety car.
Oh, we have a safety car. We have a safety car?
It looked like they were going really slow. That's got to be the safety car. There it is. There's the safety car, the beautiful livery on a Vimini safety car. See if we can get a close-up on that because it is well worth seeing. It is pain medicine for your eyeballs, that car. It is absolutely gorgeous. So don't say I didn't warn you when we get that on screen. You will get the heartbeat beating a little bit faster with the lovely red, metallic red blending into the blue, all on top of a base white finish. There it is. Isn't she beautiful?
That's
what
gorgeous.
An absolute
All
stunner.
the boys were talking about this yesterday. There was more than a couple that actually wanted to race this livery.
Yeah, and more than a couple like, I don't want to race. I want to drive the safety car. I just want to be in that beautiful, beautiful thing. So I'm really glad that we got an opportunity to get it out. And that is going to open up the door for the likes of Serrano, Christensen, Brunt to get to the leaders rate. But look at the difference in how many positions have been gained. Brunt going really offensive, getting into 3rd place before the safety car came out. He's got only Nixon and Beaumont ahead of him. Already in a podium position is Brunt, having recovered from 8th place. Serrano is in 9th place, only making up 1 spot from his starting place, and we saw 2 cars crash out ahead of him, so he's not had a strong opening lap. I wonder if he got some damage at some point or was involved in a little bit of an incident, and that's why he's not made his way forward, but he's made his life incredibly difficult if he wants to win from there, because we saw Brunt and Christensen, their pace isn't that far off him, and they've got so many less cars to clear to get to the front. It's going to make a huge difference in the final order of this race. Safety car peeling away, just a nice quick little interlude, and Beaumont will lead the field until they get to the start-finish straight. So they'll line up again. Beaumont now controls the pace. He will floor it when he deems it necessary, and nobody can overtake anyone else until they get to the start-finish line. And look at them all starting to splay out, all trying to get a bit of track ahead of them so that they can make the move into the first corner and not have to dive out from behind the car. Fitzroy Beaumont, he knows how long the straight he is. He doesn't want to go until the latest possible moment because he doesn't want anyone getting a slipstream behind him. And he drops the floor. He's got Nixon going with him. Both get a good start. Brunt is under immediate pressure from David Atkinson, who's looking to get up his inside. Let's have a look if that sorts stuff out before the first corner. Atkinson on the inside of Brunt. Brunt also has a car on his outside. It's going to be tricky for all three to get through there cleanly. Brunt is still alongside Atkinson. And it's another black and white Ferrari looking to challenge him for the lead. For third place. Brunt manages to hold on to the position for now. Can Atkinson mount an attack? And then he's got Christensen behind him. This is a dangerous position. Brunt not at all getting a good getaway. Let's have a look. They're going to get onto the start-finish straight. I think the first corner is going to be the first place where we might see another overtake for this pairing. Beaumont managing to hold the lead from Colin Nixon, not under a heap of pressure. Although saying that, it looked like Colin Nixon just darted out to take a wide line, whilst Beaumont looked like he was getting a bit defensive into the hairpin. Oh yeah, Colin Nixon absolutely pushing him through the middle sector of this lap. They're going to get to this tricky uphill right-hander where you reach the top of the crest, and all of a sudden you get a bit of oversteer, like we saw in the Vermilion Motorsport entry there. Connor Nixon then missing the apex for that corner. That's giving Beaumont a little bit of breathing room as he gets into this final corner. Going to get onto the start-finish straight, way ahead of Connor Nixon. That should give him enough breathing room to get to the first corner in the lead. However, let's see how the straight line speed of the Porsche compares to the Ferrari. So now he tucks into the slipstream. Doesn't want to let him get away. He's going to use every single advantage that he can get. Beaumont making it clear he's going to defend the inside. You're going to have to go around the outside if you want to do it, Nixon. Nixon pulls out. He's going to go for the outside. Is he going to get the move done? If he can just hang it on around there, he'll have the advantage going into turn 2. No, he goes for the up and under, gets it done. Beautiful maneuver. Absolutely textbook.
That's fantastic. And look at the gap he's pulling out already. What we're seeing from Fitzroy here is that maybe turn 1 is not his best corner. When I think about the times during this race that he's lost time, it's always been in turn 1.
Yeah, it is definitely a point of improvement for Beaumont, and it could also be just one of the characteristics of the Porsche. It doesn't like that sort of fairly long but tight radius hairpin that the first corner is. We just saw Nixon making another mistake at that corner. Made a mistake there last lap as well, going wide. Hopefully he doesn't hit the curb, but that has put Beaumont right on the back of him, making a late defensive move. And Nixon, Beaumont's not going to be able to go all the way around outside, but he is going to be tucked in right behind him. And this is where the Porsche is going to shine, in those tight corners. So perhaps not a surprise to see it close in on the Ferrari through that sequence of corner. And now look at the Ferrari starting to stretch its legs already. And if anything, Beaumont is coming under pressure from Brunt behind him in the blue Porsche, who he is himself coming under pressure. The black and white Ferrari going side by side with him. I'm going to try and hang it all the way around the outside. That's Serrano. He's made 5 positions from the restart. He's up into 4th place, right behind Matthew Brunt. And I'll tell you what, you would not want to pick a winner at this point. Serrano and Brunt, they've got similar pace. They're in 3rd and 4th. Beaumont is in 2nd. Nixon in 1st. Looking racing, made a couple of mistakes already. Let's have a look at what Serrano does. Going to this first corner, is he going to make a move and Brunt? All the cars in a line, all the cars in your shot right now. That's how close the field is in this second go around. Serrano pulls to the inside, textbook maneuver, gets the position done, as does Horton, getting the maneuver done past Christensen in the background in the 2 orange Porsches.
You know what? I was talking about Serrano earlier, and this is exactly what I was hoping to see from him. This guy has got it. He looks like he's the full package. He's benefited from a little bit of a mistake early, but so has the rest of the field. And look at him, he's moving. He hasn't stopped moving this whole race.
He hasn't stopped moving the whole race. He's got to within a place. He's got ahead of Brunt, which was the key, right? There were 2 cars that could go anywhere near his pace in the first race. He's already got past both of them. Now he just has to get past the rest of the drivers racing in that basically that second tier of pace, which were led by Nixon and Beaumont in the last race. Just want to clarify as well, Christensen, you just saw in the background getting back past Horton. So that's a battle that's going to continue raging for the rest of this race. Both in the same car. Both of them have the same characteristics. They're in a team together, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're running the same setup. That is about as even a match as you can get, and they've already swapped positions multiple times in the last couple of laps. We see our front runners now getting back onto the start-finish straight, each tucked behind the other, none close enough to make a move going into the first corner. They'll each have a bit of a breather. They might use this time to collect their thoughts a little bit before mounting an attack after the timer has ticked down just a little bit more.
So what I'm liking about this race so far is just how much cleaner it is, and have a look at the gaps that we've got.
Yeah,
we've got the 14 drivers separated by 10 seconds. This is a much closer race than we had last time. With all these drivers, sort of, they're calibrated. They've shaken off the cold one. They're all warm now, and they're here and they are fighting.
We're just receiving word from race control that there is a drive-through penalty for car 21, which is Thomas Byrne. He's down in 19th spot, and that is not going to help his finishing position.
And additionally, we also have a warning issued for car number 168 for moving in the braking zone, which is Connor Nixon himself, our leader. So I suspect that if that happens again, we're going to be looking at perhaps a penalty for him.
Yeah, and I think I know what incident that was. We saw earlier on Connor Nixon diving to the inside lane. Oh, he's been turned.
Oh,
there
no.
goes Beaumont. He's been hit by Serrano behind him. We're just talking about how clean and clinical he'd been to get back up into 4th place, and Beaumont has just been absolutely turned. Thankfully, he's got it back pointing the right way pretty quickly, but he is down at the bottom part of the top 10, currently in 9th place, trying to get back past Oliver Patterson. He's going to be absolutely gutted, and let's see if we can get a replay and digest what exactly happened there. Here we go. Let's have a look. Beaumont in the green car.
Oh, and it's Obersteller that did it too. Just turned him, got too close up behind him. And
That's Serrano.
Fitzroy around. Yeah, sorry, my mistake. Serrano, the leader from race 1. But look what this has done now. Look who is side by side. The pair from last race, Obersteller and Beaumont. Round 2 in Heat 2.
Yeah, so we saw what it looked like there was just different lines converging. Not deliberate lines. It looked like Beaumont got a little bit wide in the preceding corner, and Serrano wasn't willing to give up the overspeed that he had and just misjudged it and tapped him from behind. I will be interested to see what race control makes of that, but I believe we might see a penalty for Serrano unless they are feeling quite generous. Generally, you tap someone from behind, doesn't matter what the car ahead did, unless they absolutely plowed on the brakes in a really weird spot. It's the car behind's responsibility to get the overtake done cleanly. So we'll see what the stewards make of that. And what it's done is it's pushed Serrano back into 5th place behind Matthew Brunt now, behind Christensen, behind Horton. Some of the work he did in the race, he's going to have to redo it, and he'll be hoping he hasn't got any damage to the front of the Ferrari. Couldn't see any in the glimpse that we got there. Nothing obvious, but you never know what might be lurking behind those panels.
And what we just saw then was Curtis Bird taking himself right off track for a little excursion.
And that's going to help Beaumont begin his recovery. He is now back into 8th spot. Hasn't managed to get past Patterson yet, who was side by side with once he corrected himself after that really unfortunate spin. Serrano just dropped positions. He's pulled into pit lane.
Oh, I suspect that Serrano has probably just been issued a drive-through penalty, which again is just about the most significant penalty that you can issue someone in a live race.
And what this does is it absolutely opens the race up to Nixon, Brunt, Christensen. Any of those drivers can win it from here. Even the likes of Horton, Jones, they're close enough to the front that they could make a big move and get this victory. Beaumont, he's quite far back, but I wouldn't put it past him to come up with something miraculous and gain a few positions before this race is over. Still got just under 10 minutes of the race left, so plenty of racing action coming to your screens from the first round of the ANZ ESeries GT3 Championship.
Now, we saw last race that Beaumont had a little bit of trouble getting past Obersteller, so I'll be interested to see if Patterson puts up the same sort of challenge, or whether or not Fitzroy can sort of get this done and start moving back up for a bit of a recovery.
Well, it's already been a few laps, so it's definitely not been easy for him so far. Patterson putting up a terrific defense in those few laps. However, what we don't know is, has Beaumont got a little bit of damage from that contact? There he goes, the inside.
That is a clean and tidy
entry to the final corner, but Patterson's going to get better run out. Got a little bit of a twitch, trying to get on the throttle on the exit. That might just cost him the ability to say, no, he's plenty close in that powerful Ferrari. Basically pushing Beaumont down the straight now. Pulls out nice and early. Beaumont making it very clear. He's defending the inside. You want to get me, you're going to go around the outside. And Patterson's going to get the move done before the first corner.
He's got the full
overlap.
overlap.
There you go. That is the difference in straight line speed between the Ferrari and the Porsche down the straight in Fuji when you add in a bit of the toe. And just bringing you confirmation, car 111, Serrano did in fact get a drive-through penalty, and that is why we saw him diving into the pit lane. Good to see him do it immediately. And he must have got a tap on the shoulder from race control to tell him that that penalty was coming, because he did that before official confirmation came through the Discord channel.
So I think in terms of receiving the penalties, we're a little bit delayed. The drivers obviously get their penalties before we get to see them.
Which would be so. It would be great fun if we could break it to the drivers. Anyway, maybe not. That's not to annoy drivers that you're going to be commentating on all season, because we rely on them to come join us in the broadcasting booth after the race. for some interviews so that we can get some insight post-race as to what actually happened and any incidents that we may have missed during the broadcast. So if you are a driver and you are listening to this, even if it's after the fact, for next race, please do join us in the commentary booth after the race. You can find us in the broadcast channel in your Discord. We'll bring you in and we'll have a little bit of a chat. It's always good
let's
fun
have a look
to
at
get your
Fitzroy
thoughts.
here. Now, I will say Fitzroy has been giving us some really entertaining racing. He's been keeping this nice and spicy for us as he overtakes Oliver Patterson again.
And this time, look at the gap between them.
He
On the
has
stop.
made that stick in the penultimate corner. Oliver just went a little bit too wide, which opened up the inside. You can see him making a move towards the inside right now, just letting Fitzroy know that he's there. In fact, maybe he's actually just defending from the drivers behind him. And
I think what you saw there, I think what you saw there was a slowdown penalty. I think he got out of the throttle late in that straight because he'd got a slowdown because of how wide he went in the penultimate corner.
So talk us
be my
through
guess.
the in-game penalties, because that's what we haven't discussed yet. We do have live race control, which means that we have a boffin sitting in a computer issuing out penalties that drivers have to, but there's also an automated system as well.
Yeah, so the automated system, what it will do is if you go wide at certain points on the track, it will give you an automatic slowdown. It will say, you need to give up X amount of seconds, otherwise you're going to get a black flag, which is obviously very, very bad. So what you will see is you'll often see drivers giving that time up on the straight, and what they'll do is they'll pull to the inside, they'll slow down, and they'll make it very clear that they are serving a penalty. You wouldn't do it in the corners. If you're feeling cheeky, you will do it in the corners and hope that the car behind you can't figure out a way past, but it is fraught with danger and it is very much frowned upon within the community. So most drivers will do what we have seen from Patterson and slow down towards the end of a straight and let the cars past very obviously and very clearly. Because at the end of the day, you made the mistake, you've got to pay the crime. The cars behind you shouldn't have to pay it as well. Although, I dare say, if it's a last lap, you might see the behaviour being a little bit different. As we're watching Serrano trying to get back past Lube, he does that, gets himself up into 14th place, miles away from the front of the race. But it'll be interesting to know what his thoughts are after the race. Not sure if he'll join us in the broadcasting booth, but hopefully he does at some point, because it'd be really interesting to know what he makes of that penalty. It was a contact. It wasn't a huge contact, but it was a contact that has had big ramifications for Beaumont's race. So I'll be interested to get his thoughts on that. I reckon now, with 4.5 minutes left, let's cut to the battle at the front of the field, because Connor Nixon has not been able to pull a gap. This is a very live battle for the podium positions. These three have pulled away from the rest of the pack. You've got Connor Nixon in the lead in the Ferrari, Matthew Brun in second place in the blue Porsche, and then Jamie Christensen in third place in the orange Porsche. Less than a second between all three of these drivers. Game on.
So I'm really interested because we've got the two Porsches, which seem to be faster through these corners and through the twisty sections, but then we've got the Ferrari, which I think outside of maybe the BMW looks to be the tastiest little unit running down these straights. And a little bit of a mistake there from Connor, which might open the gap up for Matthew Brunt to make a move, and it looks like he might be moving up a little bit. That actually gap looks like it's staying the same as the Ferrari, stretching its legs down the straight, just managing to keep Matthew Brunt behind him. But we'll see if he makes a move. Connor looking to maybe defend the inside. No, he's going to stay wide as Matthew Brunt shows himself, pulls away from the toe, moves towards the inside, and we'll see who comes out ahead as we enter turn 1. Neck and neck coming down to turn 2. Matthew Brunt leading, but who's got the inside for this one? Nixon himself.
Yeah, so what you saw there, I believe, was at the start of the straight, you could see the Porsche had a little bit of a better run, using the toe, was able to pull in a little bit on the Ferrari, but the Ferrari, towards the top end of that speed range, just having the legs on the Porsche and able to pull away, but not as good in these twisty bits where the Porsche really does excel. So he's going to have to defend like mad through the middle sector, because you just think if Brunt can get past in the middle sector, he may be able to build a big enough gap to be able to survive the main straight with the grunt of the Ferrari behind him. But he's not going to be able to make a move down the main straight, because we've seen time and time again the Porsches just cannot live with the Ferraris down that length of a straight. unless Connor Nixon was to make a big mistake getting out of the final corner. We then saw in that first corner, second corner complex, Nixon happy to let Brunt have the inside line into corner 1 because he knew come corner 2 he was going to have the advantage back as long as he could stay alongside Matthew Brunt. So he just backed himself to get a better run out the first corner, stay alongside him, and then take the position back in the second corner, and he absolutely pulled off that plan to perfection. So Matthew Brunt's going to have to try something new in these last couple of laps if he wants to get the victory in race 2 here tonight.
So I think we have 2 laps remaining. We've got what, a minute 50. That gives us 3 laps. 3 laps, right?
Yes, because they'll get around again before.
And they'll cross with, I think, maybe 10 or 12 seconds left on the timer.
Yes, I believe you're right. So it will be close. We will double check and have a look for Barney to see if that becomes the last lap. Sometimes it depends how the overtime settings are set. So sometimes when you are close to that finishing time, they will wave the white flag rather than make you go around again when you're going to cross the start finish line about a minute later.
We've got a little bit of a battle here, down for one of some good meaty points positions here between Daniel Velacourt and Daniel Obersteller.
And Aaron Obersteller. I mean,
Aaron, thank you.
Obersteller in the that beautiful livery. I know I say that every time, but I really do love that livery. And he's looking to try and improve his position from 11th. Of course, we saw him higher up, but he was involved in that spin early on in the race that earned a drive-through for the car involved, and he is still recovering from that. So he may have a little bit more pace here than Velacourt. So it'll be interesting to see whether he can make a move with only a lap or 2 remaining. Now let's cut to the start-finish line and see if Barney is waving his white flag as the leaders cross over the line. Don't see Barney yet.
20 seconds to go. We'll see him in a second, I think. There it is. The
There
white
he
flag
is.
is being waved, so this is the final lap.
It is do or die time for all of these drivers. A bit of a gap between the top 3. So Connor Nixon having a good lap there, and Christensen not able to live with the pace of Brunt and Nixon out front. It's close enough that it's not a done deal, but if Nixon can avoid making any big mistakes on this lap, he should be able to hold on to the lead and take his first victory in the GT3 league. Let's have a look at what happens here. Christensen doing everything he can to try and catch up, going wide at that corner. That's not going to help him, particularly if he went wide enough to get a slowdown, didn't quite catch whether he went all the way onto the green or whether he kept a little bit of his tyres on that curb. And look at the Porsche closing up through here. We've seen it lap after lap after lap, but he's going to have to make a move and try and compromise Nixon into the final corner if he wants to get the victory. This hairpin is going to be the place to do it.
So much pressure on Nixon right now. All he's got to do is just keep it tidy, take a nice wide line through the very final corner, and keep Brunt behind.
This is
Once
when
he
your
gets onto
feet.
that straight, that's it. It's in the bag.
This is when your feet start to shake. It's when you start second guessing the braking pressure that you want to apply each and every corner.
Oh, a little bit
look
of
at him.
sideways there. That's the pressure.
Desperate.
That might be the opening that Brunt needs to get this done. It looks like he's defended quite comfortably, parked it on the apex, but this is going to be a real tight finish for the end of this race.
And Connor Nixon's going to get it done.
Flashing of
Here
the
we go,
headlights.
flashing of the light.
Connor Nixon manages to hold off, in spite of a mistake, to take home the victory for heat number 2 in the very first racing session of the GT3 series.
He was so close to completely losing it. You saw how far the back end of that car stepped out. Absolutely incredible that he managed to hold on to it and not lose a heap of time. Came so close to losing at the end, but a well-deserved victory for Connor Nixon, who
Look at this. We've got some celebratory donuts too from the drivers. I love this. This is so good.
And this is Connor Nixon, who yesterday was saying that he doesn't like driving the GT3 car. I wonder if he'll like it a bit more after that race.
You know,
Matthew
I think
Brunt.
he's feeling it. I think he's probably feeling it. I mean, how could you not?
How could you not? Matthew Brunt, well-deserved second place. 2 second places in a row for Matthew Brunt. Probably going to be the top scorer out of the first round of the championship. Absolutely superb. Christensen also superb. 2 podiums for him. He'll be happy with his evening's racing. Casey Jones in 4th place, recovering after a relatively poor race one. Beaumont recovered 5th place in the end after being spun by Sorono. He'll be wondering what could have been had that not occurred after the second restart. Hanmer brings it home in 6th. Bird in 7th. Addison in 8th. And I have lost the timing grid, so I cannot tell you where everybody else finished. Here we go, it's returned. Grubb in 9th, Oversteller rounds out the top 10.
I actually think Nixon has gotten so excited here that he might have actually blown out his diff, because I can hear that Ferrari revving its little head off. But he is moving absolutely nowhere.
That is fantastic. We've got Sorono in 11th place, recovering after his drive-through penalty. Velicote in 12th place, Horton in 13th, Lube in 14th, Atkinson in 15th, Keys in 16th, Hancock in 17th, Byrne in 18th, Milne in 19th, and Ben Miles did not finish the race. So Milne will be the last driver to be classified for this race. And we've got a few drivers in the rating room, so we'll bring all of those drivers in and we'll get the interviews underway. And Mitch, I'll let you start off the interviews while I bring all of the drivers in to the broadcast room.
Well, let's start with Connor.
What's going on? Hello.
winning the second heat. How are you feeling, especially coming into that last corner with that little bit of oversteer that allowed Matthew Bunt just to get real close up behind you? Tell me how you were feeling.
Yeah, new underwear, that's for sure. No, it was good. It was yeah, I just had that little slide there and I was like, oh, I'm in trouble here, and luckily he went for the dive bomb, because I reckon if he just went wide and kept the pace, like kept the speed mid corner, I would have been donezo, but no, it was good.
The one thing that we certainly noticed while we were watching is those Ferraris seem very quick on the straights, especially compared to the Porsches. I don't think we saw many Porsches be able to take advantage of the toe down there. How did you feel, Brunt, when you were driving the Porsche?
If I got a good run, yeah, it was okay on the straight, but I smacked that sausage curb with about 3 or 4 laps to go coming onto the straight, and it gave me wheel damage. And it slowed down a bit more, but yeah, the Ferrari's definitely got the horsepower.
And how did you feel about the Ferrari compared? I don't know if you got the opportunity to get side by side with many of the BMWs, but they look pretty quick down those straights as well. Maybe even the top of the field for straight line speed.
I can't remember if I did or not. Probably in those first few laps when it was a bit hectic, but yeah, I think it's really important getting onto the straight at this track more than going down the straight itself.
Yeah, certainly having a nice wide line onto that straight. I guess that probably makes it, and I think we talked about this at the start of the stream, is probably that final corner is probably the most important corner on the whole track.
Yeah, and we're all doing it a little different. I noticed it was I didn't do enough laps practice, but yeah, I wasn't taking a wide enough line, but I couldn't change it halfway through a race. But yeah, it's a tricky corner.
And so, guys, tell me about how you go for practicing for these races. Are you arrive and drive, or do you guys spend quite a bit of time putting in laps? We'll start with Connor.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one actually. I think most of the Vermilion boys jumped in and did actually quite a bit of practice for this. The setups, the car's been completely changed for this season, so everyone was trying to figure out what setup to run and everything. Luckily, we all figured it out how to drive the car and figure out a little setup before the race. But yeah, I think we put all in probably a good hour or so, just practice and driving around and having a laugh. So yeah, a bit of practice and just trying to learn the car personally, just because I drive the V8 a little bit too much and been driving the prototype just this week for the weekend to come. So yeah, it's been a bit of an adjustment.
We were saying that that perhaps after this you might have a newfound love for GT3s.
I tell you what, I've always told Ben I've never liked the cars. I've done very well in them over in the past, for endurance events, just keeping consistent, but never having that raw pace like Tao. You know, Tao's just one of those freaks that can just jump in and have no practice and just go for it. But yeah, it was yeah, I don't love it, but I don't hate it. It's just one of those in betweens.
So Jamie, we haven't heard much from you yet. So you were sort of following the two in front of you. Were you was the plan hoping for maybe like a Bradbury moment?
Well, I wasn't actually following. I mean, I was following them, but I wasn't trying to. I was trying to actually catch them, but because I was on max wing, I couldn't catch them on the straight, and I couldn't catch them anywhere because it's Fuji. So yeah, it just wasn't possible for me to pass.
And so, in terms of setup, so a bit more wing means that you're running a bit more downforce, which is obviously better through those corners. But on such a long straight like Fuji, did you find that perhaps it was just more of there wasn't as much benefit as there was negative?
There was a lot of benefit because the 100R, I caught Brunty a lot through there. So, but it's just the straight. It was not good at all.
And so, in terms of setups, so you guys are all managing your own setups, or having people assist you with those setups. How much of that are you doing yourself? And what from Fuji today are you guys going to be taking into the second round?
Am I talking or?
Well, yep, we'll start with you.
I don't really do any setups. I just got a Watkins Glen setup and decided to use it. So.
Yeah, I was the same on the setup. I got the one available that was for this new car, and which was the Watkins Glen. And yeah, I try not to play with it too much because there's too many buttons, and it's a bit yeah, out of my depth.
Setups are certainly a little bit of a dark art. And Connor, how about you? Are you in the same boat?
Bit in between actually. Tyus and I were throwing around a bit of setup information. Around just because we're in the same car. We ended up getting having a setup ready to go in the first race. I did one of those risky things when you throw about 3 things to the setup and pray it works and gets a bit of pace out of it. It definitely got pace out of it compared to the qualifying because I just butchered that. But the race trim on it was the start of it was good, and then about from the end of the race, I just didn't have enough downforce on the rear, so it almost kept snapping mid-corner, which was very, very scary. When the downforce just doesn't engage at all, the car just almost rotates on you. But I had a lot of mechanical grip, so that was good. But in the second race, Tao sent me a setup, so I was all good in that second race, and yeah, but. Just a little bit of understeer, which we went from one end to the other, so yeah, it was quite interesting.
So you actually changed setups between heats?
Indeed.
that might be the very first time that I've heard of a driver doing that. And my hat's off to you, because the gigantic set of donkers you must be carrying between your legs to make that move. But it looks like it's played out for you with a third place finish.
Yeah, it seems like it. Yeah, first race changed the setup from quality to race, then yeah, same thing for race to race. So yeah, I guess so.
I mean, why drive one car when you can drive 3?
Yeah, that's it.
Just obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the car just wasn't. I just didn't like it. You know, you might as well throw something at it. You know, you see a lot of real life race car teams just doing it. It's either going to be amazing or it's just going to be absolute crap, basically. So
what you're saying is Tyson was your Mick Schumacher putting in the hours in the simulator behind the scenes so that you could go and get the glory?
Yeah, you could almost say that. Tyson put something together. And it was definitely good. I just needed a bit more, less downforce and a bit more rotation. I'm just one of those weirdos that wants more rotation and basically just wants to put the throttle down on the exit. So yeah, big shouts to Tyson.
Tyson, of course, getting a pretty decent result himself in that second race, coming home in 6th place. So almost a top 5 for him, but a top 10 for sure. So he'll be really happy with that, I imagine. Because he started towards the back in race 1, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He had a few incidents, so
Right.
I don't think he's completely happy with himself, just with the pace he had. The car was definitely good, and yeah, he's a very good driver. So I'm sure we'll see him, yeah, top 3 for the next race.
So, final thoughts for yourself, Connor, going into the next round.
Yep, haven't even thought about that yet.
One race at a time, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Who knows? We'll turn up for the next round. I know Ben said there's a few people that didn't turn up, but yeah, we'll see what happens in the next race. Basically, just run no downforce on the car and pray it grips, basically.
All right, well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. We'll let you go, and congratulations to all of you for your positions.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, boys.
Thank you.
All right, so before we finish off the broadcast, we'll just run through what we've got coming up in the ANZ E-Series for you. So, tomorrow, we've got the first round of our Thursday night schedule, which starts off with the NASCARs for week 1, and they are at the Nashville D Oval, which is a pretty quick oval. It's not a super speedway, but they're going to be largely flat out with a little bit of break going into the corners. 75 laps around there tomorrow night. That should be absolutely cracking, and it's not a car that we see much in Australia, so I'll be really interested to see what the turnout is like and just how much love we have for ovals at the ANZ E-Series. And then next week, when we come back to you on a Wednesday night, we're going to bring you the first round of our Formula 4 Championship, and that will be live from Alton Park, and it's a sprint race format. So it'll be 3 20-minute races around Alton Park in the Formula 4, which is one of the best cars on iRacing for wheel-to-wheel racing. That should be absolutely incredible. We'll see you next week. Before we sign off, any final thoughts, Mitch?
Look, all I can say is I'm really excited to see what happens next week. So it looks like Sereno might be the cream of the crop in terms of outright pace. Maybe Fuji's just his track. Maybe he is the complete driver that I think he is. But this is going to put him on the back legs as we go into the start of this championship series. And he's going to have himself a lot of catching up to do. And I, for one, can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see if he joins us for the Formula Ford next week and seeing how he compares to his GT3 pace if he does do both series. Otherwise, we'll see him in a fortnight's time when the GT3s return at Road Atlanta. And of course, we hope not just to see him, but to see all of you that have watched our very first ANZ E-Series GT3 broadcast. Hopefully, we'll see a bunch of you tomorrow for the NASCAR. But until we see you next, take care and good night.